Welcome to Creation Station Monthly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is our monthly show where we talk to two creative people about how they got involved in whatever creative field for the month. This month is science, and we're going to get a chance to see how those people learned to be creative. I use that word a lot around here, I know, and that's why we're all here to talk about it. If you have an idea or you want to follow up with one of our guests, Creation Station at broward.org comes right to me. Now, today I have Chelsea, Connor, and Carissa that are here to discuss this. Carissa, tell us about yourself. What's going on out there?
Uh, my background is in wildlife biology. I currently work in the public sector. I've been doing this for a number of years in both the science and the creative aspect of it.
Everybody is a scientist. You just don't know it yet. Everybody's experimenting. Tell us about you there, Chelsea.
I am from the Caribbean, from the island of Dominica, not Dominican Republic, two different countries. And I have been interested in tropical ecology before I even knew what tropical ecology was. And that led me to where I am right now. I'm a graduate student, PhD student, studying anole lizards that they're a tropical lizard. They're found all over the Caribbean.
We definitely have those here too.
Yeah.
And
Florida has too many of them, actually.
we have all sorts of different kinds here. So my first question that I always ask, and as always, you guys just feed off of each other or follow up with questions as you see fit with each other one. Chelsea, start us off with that. When did you first start feeling like you were interested in being creative? Was it digging in mud pies? Was it drawing, dancing? How did you get to be creative? And then how did that lead you into the science field?
So for me, I do art. So I draw a lot. I draw the animals that I study. I draw the animals that I see. Sometimes I get an idea about an animal and I just have to like draw it out. I also take notes like that. So sometimes something will come up in like a lecture, and the best way for me to like remember that is to draw it out. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that. And um, I initially, like, I'm still interested in anime. That's how I got into art. I started watching anime and reading manga. I wanted to draw those. So I started drawing them. And then realized, like, you can draw lots of other things too. So I started drawing flowers and drawing landscapes. And I'm not very good at landscapes still. It's been several years since primary school. But I still do my best and try to draw them now. And that in conjunction with like growing up on an island, we have certain names that we call things in Western Antillean Creole, which we speak on my island, and trying to figure out like how do I describe this to the internet so that I can find out what it's called, and then learn more about it. Like that is another way to help me be really creative as well.
What about you, Carissa? Tell us. What did you, when you were young, how did you get all creative and muddy and messed up?
Oh, there's so many similarities between us already. I feel like it all. Um, no, I think I've always been that curious kid, and I've liked drawing, painting, writing, all that. Um, and I was the kid who needed to know how to describe things so I could look it up also and figure out what it is. And you really do have to kind of get creative to narrow it down, because if you just look up red bird, there's a lot of birds that have red in them. So you need to figure out, how are you going to actually describe that better to look for it. So I think for me it was a combination of just needing to know my environment. I like knowing my environment, and then I've always liked drawing, and so I like doing photography too. And I'm the one that my siblings always complained, I when we do any kind of event, there's never pictures of people in my pictures. It's not that
Nice.
people that I want to see. I want to see the landscape. I want to chase the bird. I want to get pictures of the animals. So it's just both those aspects have always been there, and I've just nurtured them both in two different ways. Back in college, I majored in biology, minored in art, and I actually had a art show, and it was art of science, and it was painting out bird songs, painting out the spectrum. It was,
Okay, I
there's
got to hear more.
art
Painting
there.
bird songs.
So one of the research projects I worked on back then was on bird songs, and it's a subject I could probably go on and on about. But you can make visuals of bird songs, and it's one way you can categorize the songs, help you figure out what they're singing, or some of the birds just confuse you more. So if with that visual, you already have the visual there, and one of my favorite artists is Kandinsky, and bird songs and Kandinsky actually kind of work very well together.
Cool. Very cool. And I showed while Chelsea was talking, I showed one of her art projects up there that she did, her stickers. I thought that is such a fun one, Chelsea, here. I'm going to put it back up for everybody to see again, so in case anybody didn't notice that right away. For the whole "Did you die though?" It's a great adventure. And little Anole skulls inside of there. That was just, I love that one. That is just
Um,
so much fun.
those are green anole skulls. I planned on doing more with like different types of anole skulls. But
Lemon
on
lime, right?
say again, sorry?
They're lemon lime.
Yes. On my Redbubble, which should be in my link tree as well,
Yeah, I can get to there for you.
I do other drawings of anoles that are not skeleton. I just the way that I learn things or the way that I remember things is making certain kinds of associations with them. So sometimes I will draw those associations and it makes sense for other people as well. Or sometimes it just like makes a conversation, just starts a conversation for somebody. And that's always a way to be able to like veer into like here is the science behind this, here is why this is like that. So with the live ones that I draw, I kind of just translate their dewlap colors. And if you don't know what a dewlap is, an anole and some other lizards as well have a flap of skin under their neck that they can like retract and extend at will. And it's called a dewlap, and they use it to communicate to each other. And
Is
every
that a lot of mating stuff? I always got the impression from
so
watching
it's
them out back that they're doing mating things and or like marking territory type stuff. Is that right?
It is. It's for mating. So it's communicating to mates. It's like, hey, look at me. I'm the best mate. And it's communicating to other males. It's like, hey, this is my territory. Don't come closer. Sometimes a female anole can have a dewlap, but she doesn't use it in quite the same way as the male does. And every anole has like a unique dewlap. It's unique in size and color. Sometimes they might have the same color, but then the size of the lizard is different. The look of the lizard is different, so you can still tell the difference. And it's a really big identifier for the 400 something species of anoles out
Oh,
there. Every single one has a unique dewlap, except for two of them. There's two that don't have a dewlap at all. But we do our best.
Sherlock Holmes of the dewlap. That is awesome. That is great. Let me get you guys onto the idea of, how do you get to be expressive and creative in your field? But what do you think you had to change something from what you wanted to do to be able to do that in your field and or apply those arts? Like, Carissa, how are you applying your music or art in the current way that you do the job versus what you originally thought you might be doing with that project?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thank you.
um, Current job, probably not as much opportunity as my past job. But at the very least, we do still do a lot of photography of various things. So if nothing else, I can be creative with my photography. Or if I'm drawing diagrams, I mean, you find little ways here or there, writing up your reports, so you can
Hmm.
make them a little bit nicer, neater. Um, I think I had, before this current job, I did a lot more hands-on work, and some of it was doing enrichment activities for some of the wildlife that had to be captive because they were non-releasable, and
Oh,
you can
okay.
get all sorts of creative there.
Yeah. What kind of stuff did you have to keep?
puzzle boxes. You have to make puzzle boxes that they can figure out that you can also figure out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Houses for them, paint them as you want. If some of it, because it was also attached to a museum, and that it was fun being able to put together just my own exhibits and doing some art for those exhibits.
Cool. Have you had a chance to do that yet, Chelsea? For exhibits?
I haven't created an exhibit yet, but I have been featured in an exhibit. So with that,
There you
I was
go.
able to like take my own photos for that. So it was a lot of fun trying to figure out like the best way to like how do I can't be in the field right now. So how do I like get a picture that translates I like reptiles? And I just ended up wearing pants that are like snake print. So there's that. Um, but I think being a researcher and doing research, putting together the project itself is a form of being creative.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
People don't think about that as creativity often, but it's like you have to design a way to be able to test whatever your hypothesis is, and you have to be able to say, okay, if this thing goes wrong, here is how I can, still get some data, or here is this type of data I can get from it going wrong, because it going wrong can be a result as well. So there's a lot of like thinking on the fly that comes with being a researcher as well, that lends to creativity.
Tell me about that. You started me towards a different thought path, but I'm gonna go instead back to my original idea here of, so like you said, things can go wrong. Things can go really bad sometimes. What is something that's gone really right for you? Because science is all about finding, breaking things. And, it's like, well, that didn't work. Well, that didn't work. Well, that didn't work. Wait, that's interesting. And finding that new little thing. What's that interesting thing? Where have you found, not necessarily in your current jobs or your current schooling, but just something that you found is like, huh, wait a minute. This is why I like science.
I think for me, it's the first time that I shared one of my drawings, because I had always been drawing while I was like started talking about my science journey on Twitter, but I finally just like shared one of my drawings, and like people were like, "This is amazing! Love this form of science communication," and I was like, "Wait, oh my gosh, that is isn't it? I had not thought about that. I thought that, I had an art minor in my undergrad, and I was just like, yeah, this is just for fun. Maybe I could like do art on the side for fun. And then I just like, there's nothing that says I can't do a fun thing on my sciencey account. And it turned out like, no, they can be both. You thought it was a bad thing. It's great.
What do you think, Carissa?
I mean, yeah. um, it's hard for me. I'm trying to think of examples. My mind's still filled with current thoughts.
Oh, and I do want to, if I didn't say it at the beginning, we're really appreciative of Carissa. She's out in the field right now doing this. Dove off to the side to film this with us real quick, and then she's got to go back out to work there. So thank you again for that.
Yeah, so my thoughts are a little scattered. That's because they're still out there. um, yeah, I'm trying to even remember your question.
The idea of where did you find, what's that aha moment for you in science that was like, wait a minute, this is what I can do. This is why I want to do this.
Well, and I don't know about on the creative fact. I know oh goodness, for getting into this field itself, for me it was really just I got to travel.
Okay.
I actually ended up in Brazil, and at the time I thought I was going to go to school, be a doctor, do open heart surgery, the normal path. But it was the birds. I'm telling you, those birds.
That is very cool.
Just seeing the different birds, and I don't know if some of it is. I would hope people have an appreciation for color, but I think especially when you're in the art field, you just have such a great appreciation when you see some of these birds and some of their displays, in the sounds they make. If anyone is ever bored, you should listen or look up the sound for the bellbirds, because that is still one of my favorite sounds. Which I guess I should throw out there too. I've played piano since I was 5, so music is an important aspect.
There you go.
And I think that just kind of, probably was that. I would say the aha moment was probably the bellbirds, and make me realize, there is a path to just combine everything. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yes, it does. I'm bringing up that. I'm not going to play the sound because it says that it is the loudest bird in the world, but I am going to
It's hard to hear.
bring up the video for people to see exactly what. Oh, even it says you may want to move your headphones away from your ears to listen to this. Holy cow. That is just too funny. So now we've got the Caribbean and Brazil, and you're both also in the United States, have done stuff here in the States. Where else have you guys had a chance to do that with your science?
Well, my previous research was all done on my home island. So that's where I've been doing my science, but I did also get the chance to go to a conference in England where I was able to talk to people about Blackbirders Week. I'm a co-founder of Blackbirders Week, which is a movement founded by me and some other Blackbirders to highlight what it's like for us in this field. And it's something I forgot to mention earlier. I like birds as well. I started birding back home because they were always so interesting to me, the colors and the feathers and like figuring out their behavior. So being able to go to another country and like see the birds that they have, I love the magpies. They're so precious. They're everywhere and they're perfect. And a pied wagtail, and they're called wagtails because they wag their tails, and I love that so much. It's so cute. And I got to talk to people about Blackbirds so you can share that form of science, which is more citizen science than it is like, traditional academic science. It was great to be able to make those connections there.
Tell us more about that idea, the citizen science thing.
Yeah, it's based around the idea, like you were saying earlier, anybody can be a scientist. And that is incredibly true. There are people who make observations every day that are really vital, and there's no reason why those observations have to be discounted until somebody comes along with a PhD or about to get a PhD and writes it down on a piece of paper and go, okay, now it's a real observation. They're valid observations without somebody being able to do that. And in places like in the Caribbean or in African countries where people are like really in touch with the nature that they live in conjunction with, they know what's going on with the animals. They know what's going on with the plants. They know there's different changes in the climate. The fishermen back home are just like they're great. They know exactly what fish are coming when, where they will be the best spots, how to follow the birds to find them. So that's a lot of like community knowledge that is traditionally discounted because it's not the way that the Western world does science.
How does that impact your world there, Carissa?
No, kind of, you made me think of that. So I had an opportunity to go to Australia, and one of those weeks I had a chance to go out and learn some of the local knowledge. And you're right, it's definitely discounted, but they can tell you when things are off and when they're not. When the tides come in, and I think it was I'm not going to remember the fish, but they tell the seasons by the movement of the animals, movement of the water, movement of the birds. It's fascinating. And you're right. It's unfortunate that it gets discounted because there's so much knowledge there. But yeah, so I've through my work, I've been able to get to Australia. The pied butcherbird is another bird I'm going to tell people to look up their sound too, because there's one, and if I remember right, they pick up a little sound, or it was the or it was just something about it made me always think of the Star Wars theme song every time I heard it outside my window. um, and then my current job just gets me all around the U.S. I did do quite a bit in North Texas. A lot of our focus at the time was on the painted bunting, which is, people are surprised that we have such a beautiful, colorful bird in the U.S., and it's one I wish more people would see, and also understand and appreciate the fact that a lot of these birds have specific habitats. So we see the painted bunting down there because we have a lot of open prairie. Lucky people will get them to their bird feeders, but they are not bird feeder birds. So, you know, my little soapbox about, conserve the environment and all that, because there's bird species that just will not adapt otherwise. But there you go. The male and the female.
So now,
And there's I
fill
painted theirs.
us in about that, on Carissa. Fill us in about, you said they won't adapt. What do you mean by, how do you mean by that for local people?
So a lot of there are animals, and everyone can easily tell you which ones that are easily urbanized. Your coyotes, your bobcats, your house sparrows, your
Alligators down here in Florida.
your alligators. And they're the ones that they can find a way to survive. Cliff swallows, barn swallows, they'll live on the side of, well, not those birds, but like your robins, they don't need a tree. They'll make a nest on your gutter. Birds like painted buntings, and their close relative cousin down there, indigo buntings, have very distinct habitats. They need the open prairie land. They can't live in a suburban neighborhood. Like I said, you might have the lucky people who say that they've seen them on their bird feeder, and maybe they have. Maybe they live near prairie, or maybe there's one bird that did somehow adapt to that open soccer field, but the majority really need what the open prairie provides, whether it's a grasshopper, it's a space, it's a little bit of tree cover. Indigos kind of need that more than painted, but these are the birds that their living habitat does not have a way to adapt to what human habitat is.
Interesting. Yeah. No, don't worry, Chris. You're going in and out. Don't worry. We've got you. You lead us off, Chelsea, on this next one, please. What kind of equipment are you using, and what are you using now versus what's your dream type of equipment that you want?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I'm still figuring out the details of what my project will be for grad school. But I know that I used this really simple, just a really basic like fishing rod with some fishing line, which is how you catch lizards. You make a little lasso with a fishing line, and you like slip it around their necks, and you like pull, and it's just their own body weight, so it doesn't hurt them or anything, but it does like keep them on the pole.
I was picturing like little boxes or traps, or like lure them inside. No.
You like
Huh?
fish them out of a tree. Basically.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think my dream piece of equipment would be like a better one, not like the flimsy one that I did my initial project with. I just want a really nice fishing pole, just like made for me, maybe pink, because I do like pink. Probably gonna put stickers on it too for no reason.
There we go. Yeah. Space for stickers. Carissa, did you understand the question?
I put stickers on my binoculars too. I just love putting stickers on.
Nice. We actually have binocular kits. We have birding kits at the library that people can check out that have binoculars and a bird guide and stuff like that, all in their little backpacks that you can check out and take to the parks. What's your dream equipment there, Carissa? What are you using now versus, as your standard in the field, versus what's your dream that you would love to have?
A faster way to travel. With how much I travel, I need something faster than a plane. I could get so much more done.
Oh, there we go.
A little bit more realistically, if I did go back into the birdsong world, I would just want something better for recording bird songs. The equipment we had was fine, but you can always improve on it.
Mm-hmm.
And probably binoculars as well.
And what kind of stuff are you using nowadays? Just in a general field sense, what do you kind of use?
A lot of computers.
Okay.
A lot of
You're
computers.
not going to escape that, anyone. If you're a scientist, you're going to be using computers.
Computers.
Everybody on this show has always said the word computer at least once, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little bit. It depends on the job. But
Mhm.
here's the main one.
So, what do you guys think? Carissa, you've turned your idea of science into a career. Talk a little bit about where that is. In Chelsea, you're just starting off, like you mentioned, graduate school. So you're just getting started. I want to hear where your career ideas come from after Carissa gives us her little nutshell of a biography kind of thing. Tell us, what kind of career did you have to take to get into this kind of science field, Carissa?
Um, Really, when I went to school, I already knew I wanted to go into science, so that already helped to have that kind of background. And then just tailored it from there. I would say it was less the what I majored in and all that to that degree, and more of the opportunities I did outside of my studies that really helped me figure out where I want to do, meet the people I need to meet. Um, and some of it was luck. I'm not gonna lie. Some of it was just looking for those positions or meeting that one person who set you on the right path. Getting to know, I think the big thing is just getting to know what jobs are out there. Because if you don't explore it or you don't really go outside your little bubble, you don't realize how many other things are out there. Everyone will go to science like, well, now I'm going to work in a lab, because they don't realize there's a lot of field jobs out there. Um, or, they think if you go into science and you're stuck on the medical path, which that's fine. I mean, I'm not going to complain. That's what I was going to do. Still do it to a degree, but it is really getting to just meet a lot of people, figure out who they know, what kind of jobs are out there, and then you kind of fall into what you want to do with your skill set, hopefully.
Where are you aiming for, Chelsea?
Like big overarching goals.
Go for it. How do you see your career happening?
I would love to be a museum curator, and also do like, community outreach with like art and stuff, like develop workshops. But I would like to work mainly like with Caribbean organizations. So not every Caribbean island has its own museum, but if you can help do like exhibits or like virtual collections that you can share with them, and programs to get kids in the Caribbean inspired and started with biology the way that I
Mhm.
was. Um, because I know it's not everybody who's gonna be like, determined to find a way to into this field like I was. I, initially was like, I don't know, I guess a zookeeper. I'm not sure what I can do. And I would just like, tell me everything I need to know. And I managed to make it, but it shouldn't be that difficult for everybody.
Mhm. And how do you think you mentioned zoos and you mentioned museums? What do you guys think about that transition in between the two? As sense, you're both biology type scientists, working with animals, working with birds a lot, etc., stuff like that. So, where is that relationship now between the museum of cataloging type stuff versus zoos, aviaries of keeping captive versus where do you guys think that line's blurring? Good, bad, indifferent nowadays?
I think both of them do really important jobs in terms of conservation and record keeping. Museums are really important for like keeping specimens of certain animals. Um, as we know, there's like evolution is happening, especially with like climate change going on as well. Animals are adapting. So it's great to have that like past record to see what this animal was like before it speciated, became a new species, or before it adapted to its new conditions because the environment is changing. So we're able to take a look at that thanks to the background we have from a museum. And then in terms of conservation, we have zoos, and the zoos are able to develop programs and keep these animals and make sure, you know, like we're going to do our best to make sure they're breeding and we have some population of them and they don't all die out in the wild because, again, because of climate change and because of human activity, the environment is changing really quickly and you don't want to lose a vital species.
Tell me about that, Carissa. What's the thought process on zoo versus conservation versus wild?
So my first job was at a wildlife sanctuary and museum.
Oh, hey.
So, so am I allowed to put a plug in for them? Because
Yes, of course you are.
So the Hurd Natural Science Museum in McKinney, Texas, they've been around for a very long time. Their founder bought all this land before that area exploded and said, I'm conserving this. It's about 300 acres, and at this point, it's 300 acres in the middle of just houses everywhere. And they are the ones who take in the wildlife that can't be re-released. So we have a three-legged deer there. They had a blind deer in the past. Animals that people try to make pets, which is not just illegal. I'm going to throw that out there. But it is also a very bad idea because rehabilitation is an art of its own. You have to really be able to teach these animals how to survive on their own without letting them get comfortable with you. And there are people who, you know, you can say what you want about good intentions, but I'm sorry, I can't excuse that for a lot of things I've seen. Wildlife rehabilitators exist for a reason.
Yes.
You might want to do right by them, but if you don't give to someone who knows what they are, you are actually harming that animal in the long term. I'm sure people have seen the stories about, you know, animals like the bear that gets friendly with people. It sounds cute, but he has to be put down because he's a danger. I mean,
even with deer too, because people will feed deer and that habituates them, and then they get really comfortable with approaching humans, and they often have a lot of ticks on them, and ticks have Lyme disease, and sometimes during like a mating season, deer can get pretty violent and aggressive.
exactly. And it's fun that I wish more people would understand because I know we all want to get close to wildlife, see animals. Just because it's used to humans does not mean it's domesticated, which is a completely different term of, you know, hundreds, thousands of years versus tamed, which, like you said, during mating season, doesn't matter how tamed they were, they still might attack
Their
you.
instincts kick in, and then that being tamed doesn't matter. They're doing what they instinctually know what to do. And speaking of domestication, domesticated animals don't belong in the wild. So cats belong in your house. They don't belong outside. They kill so many native populations of birds and lizards and small mammals. It's also incredibly dangerous for the cat itself. You would not let your dog outside and let it run around and roam. It's a domesticated animal. We domesticated them for hundreds of years. If you think your cat can survive outside, it can't. It cannot. And if it does, it's because it's a lucky cat. It still have several things wrong with it. Don't let your cat go outside. There's so many diseases it can catch and bring home as well.
Yes. Exactly. So I guess backing to your question, then I think these are worthwhile places because again, people want to see animals, but there's a right way to do it.
Can I plug another
Of
org?
course.
So Monterey Bay Aquarium does really great work with animals.
Oh, yeah.
They have a great rehabilitation program where, like Carissa was mentioning, they don't have a lot of contact with the animals that they hope to release back into the wild, because the best way is to have another animal raise them. So they, like with the otters, they have designated otter parents that raise baby otters that they get in that need rehabilitating, and then they've only had contact with other otters so they can get released safely. And they have the otters that stay with them because they're unable to be released, and that's the situation that you want. You want to be able to keep releasing animals back into the wild safely, with all the tools that they need. And if they absolutely have to stay with you, it's because there is something preventing them from successfully living in the wild. You don't want to just like, oh, it's a pet now. We didn't keep it.
Yeah.
It's not like
Yeah.
Snow White effect. It's like, no.
I actually have we have river otters that live in the lake that my house is on. It's really fun to watch, and we've seen multiple families grow up in that. But no, you do not feed them. You do not go near them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
otters can be pretty mean too.
Oh, they're horrible little
Unexpected.
beasts. I have seen them torturing and teasing the dogs through fences and everything because they know they can't get hurt. Oh, they're just it's crazy, crazy little things.
And I will
It's
Yeah.
really
just
important
yeah.
to remember that a wild animal is a wild animal, no matter how cute it is. Even squirrels can be bad, and squirrels can have rabies. And the only way to know if the squirrel has rabies is to kill it. And then you have rabies forever now if it does have rabies. So keep your distance from wildlife.
and vaccinate your pets.
Vaccinate your pets and keep them inside.
Definitely. We do not
Yes.
have a rabies test that you can do without having to take part of the brain.
Yeah.
No, and I was just going to add too, because the aquarium made me think of it. Something that I think a lot of people need to understand: wildlife rehabilitators who work on their own, it's a very hard, thankless job, and there's not much money into it.
Mhm.
So no matter what you think about some of these aquariums and zoos, they do a lot of this rehabilitation too, as well. And they have the money because they are part of a zoo, part of an aquarium. So whatever your thoughts are on animals in captivity and all that, you have to really realize that a lot of these places do so much more work beyond just that. That is what's helping them release those other animals because they're the ones taking them and caring for them. Not every zoo, but a lot of them really are, because
Yes.
we just don't have the people or the money for everyday person to do it. And then it's a lot of licensing as well.
Licensing is very important because then that means they went through the training and the procedures necessary. And there are people who are supposed to come by and do inspections and make sure that everything is still being run to the standards that they should be.
Exactly.
That is an awesome thing. See, you guys just gold. It's like, bam, thank you guys. One of the things I want to find out, what do you guys think is your biggest, because you guys have both had some good successes. You already mentioned some of them. Tell me your biggest failure. What's the thing that you look back on and say, darn, I really been that I could have done so much better on that? Because that's what science is about. Science is about making mistakes and then figuring out, okay, well, how do we make it better? What do we do next? What went wrong? Have either of you guys had a chance where you just don't know what went wrong and you haven't been able to figure it out?
I have had a moment where something went wrong, but I knew exactly what went wrong right
Yeah.
after I did it.
Tell us what happened.
I was
Did you blow up the lab?
There's a process. So with my previous research, I had to collect fecal samples from the lizards so I could figure out what they were eating. So I had to sequence the DNA. So in that process, there's a step where you have to like put them into like these little tubes, the liquid that you like you're so close to the end. You finally have this liquid. You're so close to like being able to go test what DNA it is. And I'm like, okay, great. I pulled it up and to transfer it to these new tubes without the magnetized beads in it. And I accidentally like go over the trash and drop the sample. And as soon as it like hit the trash, I was like, oh. Luckily there was more of the like liquid. I could go back and do it. But like a majority of it was now in the trash. So I had to like be really careful with the tiny bit of the pain. After watching those colonies like grow, I was so close, just like one more step to get it ready to go into the thing, and I just
How about you, Carissa? No lab explosions?
No, but I think we all have a kind of similar. I have to take blood sometimes from various animals, and it is one where there are times when you know you need to take two tubes because there's a chance you might accidentally drop one or put the wrong one, pour the wrong thing. um, well, things happen. I guess I can't think of any big failures because most of them either you know what you did wrong, or it's something where you just go on to know, like, oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe I should pursue that and look into why this happened.
Hmm. Yeah, that's that dangerous part of science. We're like, huh, let's explore that. And
It's
that's
so
how
much
brand new things happen. Yeah.
curiosity. Like I said, curiosity is probably going to be the thing that gets you so far in this field because rather than be mad at mistakes, it's just so much easier looking like, okay, well, do I want to pursue that now or should I keep pursuing this? Because what's more interesting now to me?
And where do you think you can take that? Because we talked about you guys have both been able to start your careers or build a really good career going, you've traveled the world, Carissa. Where do you take those mistakes and when do you decide, okay, here's this new branch that I want to go off on versus, I mean, just like you've both already made a decision about, going into animals versus art, but using art along with you. Where do you make that decision? Like, okay, wait, this specialty thing is what I want. Where's the light bulb moment come on for you? If you were to if you're mentoring somebody else out there and telling them, stick around in the field long enough and you'll get a light bulb moment, how would they know they've had their light bulb moment?
I think you'll know it when you feel it because I'd just be like working on something, or I'd send an email or have a conversation with a mentor, a professor, and that helps things fall into place. And then when you like have a couple more things fall into place, you kind of feel it. So talking to my undergrad advisor is how I realized that, oh, I really like these reptiles. Maybe studying reptiles is the way for me. I do still like birds, and I realized, okay, I love them in a recreational way. I could study them in the future, but I do just enjoy like looking at them. I don't necessarily have to study them. And
I
then
thought birds were
drawing
just
animals,
lizards and dinosaurs with feathers.
they are, right? You're correct. So I'm working with some reptiles.
Okay.
um yeah, drawing things just like felt right. And then when I realized that I could do like art as science, and even though I've seen illustrations in textbooks, and it finally like connected for me that like I can communicate science myself the way that I want to with my art, that was like another light bulb moment for me. There's no like singular light bulb moment. It's as you're figuring out stuff, you're trying new things. Don't be afraid to try new things because that helps you figure out what you like and what you don't like. As you're doing that, that's when the light bulb is going to go off for you. So think of it as like a house. It's not just one room with a light bulb. It's a house, and slowly it's getting lit up for you.
Nice. I like that. That's a nice image. Tell us, Carissa, what's your light bulb? How would you mentor someone and tell them this is when you want to know what path you're on?
Well, I guess for me, my first light bulb was just trying to figure out where I wanted to work. You can go nonprofit, you can go government, you can go corporate. They're all going to have different opportunities, different good and bad to them. Um, I think my real light bulb moment that got me on this path was, back in Brazil. And it was talking to my advisor down there and, realizing how much I really, really enjoyed that trip and deciding from there, what would make me happier? Do I really want to go through the slog of medical school, MCAT, worrying about my grade all the time, high stress environment, or do I want to go chase birds in the field? And that was kind
Do
of
you
an
use a
major,
lasso too?
huh?
Is Chelsea's lasso, is that involved with birds or is that or you use a traditional net? Tell me.
Well, it's more binoculars and you chasing them and knowing that you'll never catch up and you really need to stay still because you're not doing any favors by chasing them.
Gotcha.
Although we did try to catch some lizards down there, we did not have a lasso. We were not successful.
I'm gonna have to
um,
remember this now. I'm gonna see if I can come up with one for my back porch. Capture these little things that are running around on the porch
you'll
now.
have to teach it the right way.
What we used to do back home is there's like these long, thin stalks of grass,
Hmm.
Kind of like I don't know, they're not wheat, but like imagine like long, thin stalks like you find on like wheat, and you just like peel off the little bits that have the seeds on it. Now you just have like essentially a long stem thread, and you can just like tie a little lasso on the end of it and use that, because that's how we used to catch lizards when I was a kid, and it works really well. So you don't need a fishing pole. If you
I
find
like
that
this
on
idea.
top
I
of
like this
grass.
idea.
I wish someone taught me that as a kid, because maybe I would have gone into studying lizards instead.
Yeah. And I've been thinking every time you guys are mentioning all these things about this, I'm like, huh, we just had a nest of cardinals hatch on our back porch. They've been up in the bushes around the back porch we've had. So I'm like, wow, I've been like staying away and trying to be cautious and like when they're out there feeding, don't sit on the patio and give them space to do their thing. But maybe I need to go out there and just kind of sit there and watch and get the camera out
They might be
instead.
used to it. Just thinking back to what I said earlier, you have your urban and suburban, and we actually do see this in some population of coyotes and bobcats. There's a distinct difference between your urban ones and your rural ones.
Hmm.
So these cardinals are, I mean, don't touch them.
Oh, no,
That's
no, 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 no.
law.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're probably used to. You could probably at least sit on the porch with them.
Okay. See, I've been
Yeah.
waiting until they like go to bed. Last night I had a hummingbird on the porch for the first time. If you follow me on Facebook, I posted video. Tiny, tiny little thing just going around in our flowers. It was amazing, amazing.
Yeah, like it's
Tell
so
me
much
what?
fun to watch birds. I'm sorry, I was just saying it's so much
No,
fun to sit
no,
here
say
and
it.
watch birds. Especially if you have like a nesting box or a bird feeder that they can come visit. Again, it's fine to like put up the bird feeders and nesting box, just like don't touch them. A lot of birds are like federally protected. You can't even collect some of their feathers, so just like leave them be. If you do see a baby bird on the ground, there's a couple steps you should follow. If it has feathers, it looks like, a fledgling, like if it has a little bit more time, it might be able to fly, then it's fine. Its parents are around somewhere. They're taking care of it. If you don't see its parent ever come, still don't touch it. Call a wildlife rehabber instead so that they can take care of the baby bird.
Yes, and if you end up bringing it to the wildlife rehabber, like I mentioned before, so many of them are operating on their own dime. You don't have to give them a donation, but it's very nice of you to bring that bird and a donation for that
Yeah.
bird.
Mhm.
Just throwing out, especially birds, because we mentioned all the licensing, but birds are a whole nother level of protection. And so there's even more licensing involved, which is why you probably have even less bird rehabilitators than you have other animals.
Hmm. That's interesting. So who does that licensing and stuff like that? Is that all local, state, federal? What kind of
State
stuff
and
is that you're talking about?
um, birds are protected by the Migratory Bird Act 1917. Um, and then if you get into your big birds, like eagles are extremely protected, and that's all federal. But
Is
it's
that
a
for all eagle types? Like I have osprey. Is that a
uh,
protected or not?
eagles, and maybe golden eagles as well. I'm trying to remember. I know bald
Yeah,
eagles for
I think golden eagles and bald eagles.
Okay.
Because I know like, even my undergrad school in Texas has a collection. They have a great collection of birds, and I couldn't even like take a picture of the bald eagle in case somebody saw it and they were like, "What is that?" It was collected well before the laws were in place, but we don't speak about the bald eagle. We don't talk about
Okay. Huh.
it. It just exists in the collection. We don't put it out ever. It's there.
Yeah. So a lot of it is federal under federal, and then
Mhm.
states will have their own additional requirements.
Guidelines.
So I can't tell you what it is for other state because every state's a little different, but it is
Yeah.
both. Yeah. That give you licensing and come check on you.
Yeah, and it is because of the Migratory Bird Act, which is why I said earlier you can't pick up feathers. So
Okay.
be
Hmm.
careful of that. I think pigeon feathers may be fine, but if you're not sure what feather it is, don't just leave it. Don't
Guys,
pick
your invasive species are not protected. So if you hear about like the starling removal programs or things like that, it's because they are not technically native birds.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, if you don't know, then just assume it's native because
Yeah.
they're protected.
Gotcha. Real quick thing I want to follow up on Chelsea, you had mentioned about bird feeders now. Are we supposed to be having bird feeders out now or not?
Yeah, it's like spring. You can have bird feeders out. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, is it like a thing where we're going to attract them and attract the wrong thing? And like you were saying, Carissa, you're going to try and
So,
pseudo, what was the proper term for it? You
Habituate.
habituate. Thank you.
oh,
Thank you.
oh,
Thank you.
wait, wait.
Yeah.
Yes, and at this point, they're, I mean, bird feeders aren't a bad thing. I think my biggest thing is if you have a bird feeder out, clean it. You
Yeah.
have to clean it because you have disease like salmonella. That's a big problem with bird feeders because you are making gathering point for them.
Mm.
Um, and then if you're in an area like I live up in New York now, you don't have it out right now because the bears are going to come and eat the bird feed. So don't put them out because the bears are going to come. Um, so I would say it's not a bad thing. Um,
Okay.
but people have to be a lot more vigilant about, making sure they're clean because there's, pox virus is another one that will go between bird feeders. Um, Hummingbird feeders, especially if you decide to have those, that's fine, but those need to clean out because they will get moldy and fungus
Yeah, because of
and
the sugar. So you want to make sure
Okay.
you clean it regularly.
yeah,
And I think the difference between like bird feeders and like handing out food to animals, just like it's still like the natural seeds that they find. It's just like it's hanging out there away from you and away from like they a good bird feeder should not be like right on your right like on your doorstep or something. It should be hanging
Okay.
out somewhere
like
so
those,
they don't know that you're around. They don't know that
yeah,
you're the one feeding them. They're like, oh, there's food here. I know it.
yes.
The problem comes in when you're like, you put bowls out with cat food for raccoons, and they're like, oh yeah, this person
Oh,
put
no,
down
no, no,
cat
no,
food.
bad. No,
That's how you
that's
get
got to
red
be
rabies.
bad. That's just got to be bad. That sounds bad
Well,
right there at the beginning.
is,
Yeah.
when you see those videos, and I know how tempting it is, the ones who have like the little bird finger ring, and so the bird or the hummingbird sits on their finger and drinks from it, or the glasses and internet, please don't do that. Don't do that because that is you teaching them not to be afraid of people and not to be afraid. And that's the thing. From a distance, that's fine, but don't be encouraging, come take the food out of your hand.
Okay. Okay.
So birds are pretty serious beings. Like you don't want to be on the wrong end of that. I got dive bombed by a mockingbird because I was walking and didn't know it had a nest
Oh,
somewhere. I was
oh
terrified.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
found
yeah, yeah,
out?
yeah, yeah. No, we've had those and woodpeckers in our neighborhood. Mockingbirds and woodpeckers are a big thing right now, nesting and doing all the stuff. So, one last question for you guys. We always try to ask this is what do you think the public in general thinks about your job? Is it that the crazy scientist in the white lab coat? Is it, you know, what do you think about or what would you change about that perception that you think they have, and what would you want them to think differently about?
Well, I think that well, I do a lot of different things, so I think it depends on which thing you're thinking about. If you're thinking about like birding, they think about like an older white man and like a vest with lots of pockets, and these like big binoculars and a huge camera going out looking at birds. And if you think about someone who studies reptiles, they probably like pivot to more of like a Steve Irwin vibe. And if you think about like science illustration or communicating science of art, they think about someone who's like drawing these like really detailed like breakdowns of like what cells look like, looking at them through a microscope or something. And that is obviously not me. That's not any of what I am. I do not do what Steve Irwin does. Again, please don't go outside and grab animals. Please don't do that. I'm begging.
Yeah.
Even I, as a herpetologist, do not go out and grab animals. I go, do I need this lizard for my data collection? I think about touching it. And you need to have licenses for that. Um, I think just like being able to get out there and get my voice out there and tell people what I do and why it's great and why I love it is helping change our perception. You see a lot of social movements like the one that I co-founded, Black Birders Week, and lots of others like it, like Black in Marine Science and Black in Math, showing like there's different types of people out here doing these
Thank you
jobs.
for that plug, Chelsea. We're having somebody from Black and Marine Science on for our Oceans one coming up here in
Nice.
July.
I love them. They're
Yeah.
great. But yeah, it's just being able to have like social media now is such a great thing because you get to get all these different viewpoints and get to see all these different people doing things. And another thing is that like people find out what they want to do at different stages. So I noticed that a lot more people I'm seeing on my timeline are older students who are like, actually, I initially had this day job and now I really want to get into this. And that's great. That's more people doing things and being part of something that people normally don't think about as the usual demographic. So social media is definitely great for that.
How about you, Carissa? What do you think the public thinks about the job, and what would you change about their perception of it?
I think the representation definitely is a big part of it too. I know like my current one, it's a lot. I'm not who they expect when I'm there. It's similar, you know, the old white man, that's what they expect, and that's not who I am. So I like being able to see, you know, more representation of that. And just and like you know, I know we keep harping on it, but I would like the public to understand that there are reasons that we say what we say and we do what we do. um, we're not just trying to say don't touch birds because we hate you, but we actually have very good reasons for that. And I wish the public would just kind of understand that the reasons for what things are, there's a reason for the way that things are. And that's really is trying to get back there. And a lot of it too is um, a lot of these things, there's a lot of research behind it, and I don't think people really understand that. So, so you know, you can search things up and all that, but you really don't understand the magnitude behind why things are the way they are.
Yeah, we want
Gotcha.
you to have fun and experience wildlife and nature, but do it safely. So like us saying don't do X, Y, Z is not to like kill your fun. It's just like we want you to be safe and we want the animals to be safe as
Yes.
well. And for us to coexist, all of this work that people have been doing for a long time says like, okay, don't feed these animals. Keep your cats inside, and that will like keep everybody happy.
That right there is a great ending quote. Thank you there, Chelsea. Thank you, Carissa. Thank you both very much. We flew through an entire hour here. I don't think we even got to all of our questions. Let's throw up our ending slide here. Again, Creation Station Monthly, we do this the last Tuesday of every month. Come back and see us next month. If you have any questions for our guests, you can email them to me at creationstation@broward.org, and I'll forward them along. Thank you all very much, and you have a great day. Stay safe.